What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So, I want to continue proving my point about how these players of today, despite the media wanting you to feel sorry for these spoiled, entitled multimillionaires, the fact remains that compared to their predecessors, they have it made. They complain about back-to-backs, right? When the average American sometimes have to work 7 consecutive, 10 consecutive, 12 consecutive, 19 consecutive, 30, sometimes a person can go a whole month without a day off. And I get that it's hectic to be a basketball player from a public standpoint, but let's not forget you're playing a game that's meant for recreation. I get this your job, but come on, man. Maybe if these players calm down on their personal lives and stop fucking partying, maybe they would have more energy. Because we all know, shit, if we working, you can't party the night before. So maybe that's part of the problem. Because compared to the players of the past, like I said, they got it made. They have it made, man. And I get the business aspect of it. These players are investments, so we have to protect with load management. Well, that's why ratings are at an all-time low. That's why people are tuning out the NBA and watching college basketball or other basketball avenues. But I want to talk about the 1968-69 Boston Celtics, the last hurrah of the Russell era championship Celtics dynasty squad. All right? Bill, Sam Jones, these guys were past their primes. John Havlicek was becoming a more important cog for the team. Earlier on, he was the replacement for Frank Ramsey, a sixth man, but by this time, he was becoming their premier offensive player and their best player. And this team upset the 1969 Lakers, as well as beating next year's champion New York Knicks in the playoffs. They really had a Cinderella run, and they're the fourth lowest seed ever to win a championship. They were the fourth seed. The only other seed lower than them, the 1995 Houston Rockets, who had also an amazing playoff run. But they had a very, very grueling NBA schedule. Okay? Now I told you that the Lakers this year have had 12 back-to-backs. And LeBron just used as an excuse for why they lost last night. What a convenient excuse for a guy that's supposed to be the GOAT. Never heard Michael Jordan use that as an excuse, ever. Ever. Well, I just went through, and you can check it for yourself. I went through the 1968-69 Boston Celtics schedule. And as hectic as the 72 Lakers schedule was, when I said they had 24 back-to-backs and 6 back-to-back-to-back games all during the regular season, the 69 Celtics schedule was even worse. My respect factor for these guys is off the roof. It's going through the roof now. Guess what? 2023 Lakers, 12 back-to-backs. None will be in the playoffs. The 1972 Lakers, 24 back-to-backs. 6 back-to-back-to-back games, all during the regular season. The 69 Celtics had 32 back-to-back games. 32. And they had 6 stretches of at least 3 back-to-back games, back-to-back-to-back games, and one where they played an incredible 4 games in a row. I wrote the dates down to be even more specific. November 15th, 16th, 17th of 1968. the Celtics played 3 games in a row. 3 games in a row. January 10th, 11th, and 12th of 1969. 3 games in a row. January 31st, February 1st, February 2nd of 1969. 3 games in a row. Later on that same month, February 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 3 games in a row. And then a week later, less than a week later, February 28th, March 1st, March 2nd, another 3 games in a row. But here's the coup de grace. I skipped over it on purpose. They had a stretch where they played 4 games in a row. December 31st, 1968, New Year's Eve, they played. New Year's Day, January 1st, 1969, they played. January 2nd, 1969, they played their 3rd game in a row. And on January 3rd, 1969, they played 4 games in a row. Did you ever hear Bill Russell complain about that? Did you ever hear Wilt Chamberlain, these guys complain about that? Why is it that these guys were playing 40-plus minutes a night, wearing those uncomfortable-ass Converse and Chuck Taylors, using commercial airlines, not chartered flights, not NBA-provided flights, not personal helicopters or planes, having to get up 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, to travel to another city. Planes were not as fast as they are today, so you didn't have planes going 500 plus miles an hour. Maybe they were going more like 300 miles an hour. So you arrive in a city about 30, 45 minutes later, book a hotel, still having to elude some fans. It's not social media age, but still people recognize these guys. Having to worry about security, having to worry about racism if you're playing in certain areas. Then to arrive to play in a city where you're playing 3 games in a row. Imagine being an older athlete doing that. And by the way, you know how the NBA now has about a week rest between the end of the regular season and the playoffs? The regular season ended March 24th, 1969, and the playoffs began 2 days later, March 26th, 1969. Just 2 days. They had 2 days of rest before they went right to the playoffs. And the 1969 Celtics had 2 back-to-backs during the playoffs. I didn't write them down, but they had 2 back-to-backs during the playoffs. And they didn't really have these huge stretches where they weren't playing. I think I saw the longest stretch they had was like 4 games, but usually it was like 2 games maybe when they were off. A few 3, a few maybe like 1 or 2 stretches, but usually it was 2 days. I've seen some where they only had 1 day off. As I said before, the schedule was more condensed. Began in October like today, but it ended in early March. Now the schedule stretched out to mid-April. And as far as pace is concerned, although the league-wide pace wasn't measured back then, the Boston Celtics had a pace of 117.5. And that didn't even lead the NBA. 117.5. To put it in perspective, the Sacramento Kings have a pace of 100.4, excuse me. Now I know there's different variations to a slight extent, but this just suggests, as I've said before, that the pace in the 60s and 70s was generally faster, even faster than today. So why were these shoe salesmen and taxi drivers and cab drivers and firemen, as J.J. Redick said, why were they able to withstand the rigors of this terrible on-your-body schedule? But these pampered, so-called bigger, faster, stronger athletes with this stretched-out schedule and their sleep gurus and, getting all these massages and all this nice needed rest, they still get hurt. Still need load management. This is what's really happening, to be honest with you. A lot of these guys are playing 17, 18, 19, 20 plus years, right? But they're getting to play the last 5 or 6 years of their careers playing 40, 50 games. So when you look at it, games-wise, they're not playing more games than the guys who played 15, 16 years back then. Altogether. Elvin Hayes. I know Elvin Hayes is an extreme case, but Elvin Hayes only missed 9 possible games in his 16-year career. He only missed 9 out of 1,312 possible games. And don't think he didn't get hurt. He played through that shit. Where are all the Iron Men? You don't have them anymore. I'm not saying everybody played every game. But what happened to these Iron Men? What happened to Elvin Hayes? What happened to Dolph Shays? What happened to the Randy Smiths of the world? What happened to, the AC Greens? Hell, to say someone even more recent, what happened to Derek Fisher? Didn't Derek Fisher have a stretch where he played like 500-something games in a row? What happened to the Ron Boones of the world? These guys that played all these games consecutively, no matter if they were hurt, whether they had a fractured finger, whether they had, a fractured toe, strained this, strained that. They went out there and played because that was their job. But they want you to feel sorry for them, man. And I don't. These guys today. So anyway, that's just my take on it, man. Tell me what you guys think.